to have Coach Cos here tonight to talk to us and kind of cap off today's clinics with this talk on why we need football. So it's all you, Coach. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you to all of you who have joined. Honored to be able to speak. This is really what I had intended to talk about at the Maine High School Football Coaches Clinic that was unfortunately canceled or postponed, because you never cancel in football. It's always moving on and figuring out another way. This was to be the kickoff for the youth coaches part of it, and I think a lot of this is based on my experience in football, and I had what I would call an incredibly unique experience in youth football that has, I guess, married me to the game and made the game my life. And I think one of the things that gets lost in all of this is how impactful youth coaches can be. And I got to share a little story with you to get this thing off on the right foot, because it's almost hard to believe the story that I'm going to tell you. And it starts with my dad. In 1965, as a 10-year-old, we moved from Hyde Park, which is a section of Boston, to a suburb of Boston called Sharon. And I can remember within the first week of being there, we moved in the summer after school had ended. My dad come home one night, and at the dinner table, he says to my mom, he says, "I think we messed up coming here." He didn't use the word mess. He was, and she said, "Why is that?" Just, they don't have football in this town. They don't have youth sports at all. And I was the oldest. I was 10 at the time, and I was the oldest of 6. And so my dad was a milkman. He worked out of Charlestown, drove a truck, and, was a 4 a.m. in the morning get-up guy, at work at 5 and home at 2 in the afternoon. So in an incredible way of living, he was a milkman by trade and a coach by passion or love or hobby or whatever you want to call it. To try to make a long story short, he started – there was a field behind our home and a pasture, cows, horses, and those kind of things. And within a year, he had talked the owners of that land into building a football field, baseball field, kind of a field for the neighborhood kids. And that was really amazing to see that transformation of that pasture to a field. It was done by parents, led by my dad, and to make this thing really seem, and they started recruiting, which again, back then, this is the 60s now, it's the same type of recruiting we face nowadays. You've got to go out and convince young kids of the value of athletics, but in particular of this game. I think this game is special and unique in that regard. Anyways, I can always remember this. This is kind of a funny story, but as they gathered, the coaches used to meet at my house. And I was 10, like I said, and I remember kind of crawling out on the rug floor out to where they were meeting to listen to the things they were talking about in terms of putting this program together. And my dad had been out recruiting, and he had recruited a group of kids that were a little bit older than most of us. They were 11, 12, 13, but at the time they smoked cigarettes. They hung around in front of a drugstore. They flew kids off the docks at the lake. They were the tough guys. Everybody was afraid of them, including myself. My dad was recruiting these guys to play, and all of a sudden they started showing up at the field. And I remember one of the nights on my belly in the hallway, hearing my dad say, or hearing one of the coaches say, "Jack, I don't think that's the kind of kid we want in our program." And I remember my father going back at him saying, "No, that's exactly the kind of kid we want in our program." Simply because they were tough kids. And my dad knew that, and in kind of a fantastic restoration of young people's lives, he changed young men, and some of them became really good football players and ended up playing high school football and stopped the cigarette smoking and all the things they were doing. when I was an eighth grader, and I started at 10, I'm in fifth grade. By the time I was an eighth grader, we won the state championship, which is a heck of a story in itself. During the season, we lost to a team 42-0, got spanked. It was our only loss of the year. But that team lost in the playoffs, and we had to play the team that beat them, and somehow we beat them. And for the next 2 years after that, the town won the state championship, which was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. But it all came back to a guy driven by the game to make an impact. One of the lasting impressions I'll ever have in my life is the milk truck that he drove coming down the street loaded with football equipment and handing out football equipment from the back of a milk truck. You know, throwing helmets out to kids and then trying them on. If they didn't fit, they handed it to the next kid. And he tried it on, you know. Nobody had any clue about that type of thing that is so prominent in today's world. But it really didn't matter. You know, what mattered was, you know, we had a bunch of young people wanting to play the game of football and be taught and coached. And that to me is a story that I'm blessed to be able to tell. You know, like I said, some of the other stories that come about, you know, when a kid couldn't afford anything, he used to have to go to work with my dad on the milk truck. So my dad would take him and buy him a pair of football shoes or things like that. You know, it was just the way he went about it. And I think the biggest theme that I get out of all of this, that experience, is how much coaches matter and how much coaches can impact lives. I've always been a big fan of John Wooden, and John Wooden says that no other profession like coaching impacts and changes lives. And it's something I think that's really important for us as a coaching body to oversee and to make sure that we're recruiting coaches just like we're recruiting players. And we're recruiting coaches and making it important to the young coaches, the youth coaches. And I think that's really a community-based approach. I think it's something that the high school coach, the high school program, they should be involved in. And I want to get to that on my screen here in a minute. But it really is something that I think in this day and age we really have to work at. Before I get to that, I do have a document that I wanted to share, and this is my hope way of getting it up there. Does everybody see that? Can everybody see that document?
No, not yet, Coach.
It's not up there yet?
Did you click share screen on the bottom? Oh, hold on a second.
I did. I thought I did. Let me go back to it.
Try it again.
Share. Now?
After you click it, there should be whatever tab you have open on your computer should come up, and then you should be able to choose it.
All right. I can't see it. Damn. Shoot.
You got your assistant back there still? Can come help you?
Hey, Sid. I lost that document that I wanted to show the guys. Could you come here for a sec? That first document.
Okay, which one? Yep. Click,
It's not showing there.
okay, so let's move exit out of that.
Okay.
Which one of them is it?
It's this one. Right here.
Double click it. Okay, and now minimize it, and then the other one also. Minimize this one too.
Mm-hmm.
And then go and share your screen now.
Okay, so I got to go share screen.
Yep. This one?
Go up
just
here?
Click there.
Yeah, okay.
And then share.
Yeah.
And now go over here.
Mm-hmm. And click on that?
Yep.
No, it's right here.
You got it, Coach. You got a good assistant.
Got it. Okay.
Thank you. All right. I'm sorry, guys. I thought I had that. Anyways, so this is what I'm sharing with you is when I became the head coach at Maine, I got this from my dad. This is I don't know if anybody's ever seen it. He handed it to me about what a football coach is. So I I've kept this with me my entire life, and it really means a lot to me. I think it's something that I wish I probably had shared more often. It was one of those things that actually got kind of funneled to a place where I almost forgot about it. But this time period has given me plenty of time, and it came up, and I uncovered it. I mean, it's something I'd be happy to share with everybody, but really quickly, it just talks about, what a football coach is. And it is all of these things: a politician, a judge, a public speaker, a teacher, trainer, finance, a laborer, psychiatrist, psychologist, chaplain, an astrologer, at least understands, these optimists, pessimists, humble and proud, strong, weak, confident, not overconfident, enthusiastic, the hide of an elephant, the fierceness of a lion, the pep of a young pup, guts of an ox, stamina of an antelope, wisdom of an owl, cunning of a fox, the heart of a kitten. Also be to your benefit to develop the acting ability of a poker player with a pat hand. Give freely of your time. We all know that. Your money, your energy, your youth, your family life, your health, even sometimes life itself. In return, you must expect little financial, little comfort on earth, little privacy, little praise, but plenty of criticism. Good coach is respected in his community. He's a leader in his school, loved by his team, and makes lasting friends wherever he goes. That's something that is really the highlight for me. You have the satisfaction of seeing youth develop and improve in ability. You've learned the thrill of victory and how to accept defeat with grace. Your association with your players helps keep you young in mind and spirit. And believe me, that's been something I've always felt has helped me. And you too must grow and improve in ability along with your team. And that's a hard thing, keeping up with young people, keeping up with the changes, and keeping up with the challenges, say, this technology and this incredible time in our country's history where we're in unprecedented waters and having to be non-traditional and having to think outside the box. And as it closes in your heart, you know that in spite of all the inconveniences, the criticism, the demands of your time, you live and love what you do. Walk tall and proud, you're a football coach. And that's something that has meant a lot to me, and I thought I'd share it. It was just something that is, I think it really summarizes in kind of a cute way what a football coach is. It's not just that. My wife used to have an answer for a question that got asked to her quite often. What does he do when the season ends? That's when she said, well, he disappears. At least he stays in the house during the season. So that, I just wanted to share that with you. I will, I think I get out of that right now. And I want to click on to, I'm going to share another document with you. Let's see, where am I going here now? Hey, Sid, I need you again before I get fired here.
You should just be able to choose
another document.
Oh, you get paid for this.
Yeah.
Which one?
I want to go to this one.
Okay, so just click on it.
Everybody see that?
Perfect, coach. You got it, man.
All right.
Yeah, so I gotta do hover and then.
I lack confidence, guys. Technology. I lack confidence. Okay, this is kind of the framework and kind of a follow for us as we go through the building for the future. And I really wanted to talk about youth football coaching and the importance of it, as I started with, but also building for our future. And I think every coach should know, and it really starts with this. Football really matters, guys. It really does. And promoting the game and recruiting for our game is incredibly important now. And it starts with what people want to hear. What can you do for me now? What have you done for me lately? And the values in our community and the value system, to me, it's summed up by a boys to men kind of thought maker, a man maker. It's a sport that outside of our military probably is the most difficult and demanding of all the sports that are out there. And, I'd argue that with anybody, just simply because of what it takes and the mindset and the attitude that the young men have to have, the effort they have to put forth, and most importantly, the discipline that's taught through the game. But I think one of the things that needs to really be sold is that value system, that boys to men, and how's that happen? And I think three things that we really lack, in our society now, and not lack, but perhaps are on the decline is a better way for me to say. It promotes character, which, to me are things like attitude, effort, discipline, integrity, and pride. I mean, without those, I really think your character is in question. Love being around guys with great attitude, hard workers have always been easy for me to embrace and like. Discipline is an art, it's a skill, and those that are disciplined are the ones that will end up being your winners. Integrity, kind of a summation of those three words. And there's nothing more important than having a pride in something you're involved with, being a part of a team that really promotes the special quality of pride and being a part of something. Football emphasizes family. Teamwork is really such an important part of this game, more so than any others. I just was on a long conversation with our player council here, and one of the guys goes, "Why is it so hard for everybody to do the right thing?" And I said, "Well, let's look at football." And just said, we have 75 guys. I promise you, not all 75 guys are doing what we're asking to be done here. I mean, there are guys that are not doing what we're asking to do. It's virtually impossible to be perfect in building a football team. Even the greatest teams have dissenters, guys that aren't playing, guys that just feel like they're not getting a shot. And if you have 90% of your guys fully on board, that's probably a good thing. Because imagine trying to do that with the whole country, because that's what we're trying to do right now. We're trying to emphasize family, teamwork, do the right thing. And there are dissenters. There are people who don't take this seriously. So, but family is about honor. It's about loyalty to each other, love, respect, and trust, which are huge words in any type of operation. And I think those are sellable words because with respect comes trust. With trust comes love. And the ability to honor and be loyal to a unit, to an organization, is enhanced by those values. Most importantly, I think football develops leadership characteristics, and it's along the lines of accountability. My favorite word is courage when it comes to leadership. Winston Churchill once said that without courage, you don't have the ability to have any other values. And he's right. You have to have the boldness within you to pursue excellence, to respect and trust, to be disciplined. It requires courage. It's not simple to be courageous. It's not simple anymore to be disciplined because perhaps that's frowned upon by your peers. So developing leadership is something we need more and more and more of. And the pursuit of excellence is such an important Vince Lombardi's great quote about the pursuit of excellence rings in our ears, but it is incredibly important that it continues to be heard. And I know I use it with I know Vince was a 60s guy, but the 2020 Colby Mules know exactly what the pursuit of excellence is. One of the big things I think in leadership is service. I'm a big believer in you get out in front of everything you do as a leader, that you do the things that you're asked. You're going to ask your team or position group to do. You're very much a service-oriented leader. I think it's the best example because it has the greatest amount of actual influence when people see you out in front like that. Humility, that comes with the territory. I think the humble are the most respected. The ones that don't need to kind of promote themselves, simply do it because it's who they are. So that's really an important part of what I think is the development of the future, our work towards the future. It's involving young coaches, involving youth coaches, it's involving your entry-level high school coaches in the understanding of the importance of our value system and how it can change lives. Just like I talked about that group of guys, at 11, 12, 13 years old in 1965 who got away from smoking cigarettes and throwing guys off the lake docks and became football players. The second thing I have here is, and this is real important, this is kind of systematic, coaching your coaches and your staff top to bottom, establishing a professional communication and relationships within your community. And this is kind of a list of areas. I don't really know how detailed you can be in all these areas, but I know things have changed. I know because of the health and safety issues in and around our sport, you better have a community medical team that's supports the game, understands the game, and wants to help you promote the values of the game. Because of the concussions and the injury and the protocol and the management, we need to be boldly confident about that approach that we take. There's nothing more impressive than a coach who's in the know about these, the medical issues that are going on today. And it starts with simple things, simply like, as I say here, being a part of the equipment staff and knowing how to fit a helmet, and knowing the importance of the shoulder pad fit, and knowing all those little fundamental things. It's not how pretty the shoe is, it's how well does it fit, and how those kind of things. It's really important that the coaches in the community are confident in the know. And a lot of this stuff can be data driven. And as I work through this, I cite some examples of data-driven data that can be very, very helpful as you promote our sport. I think it's important that the youth and high school coaches have a program philosophy, policies, teaching process, and procedures. Those are things that I think really are emblematic of programs that are really successful. There's kind of a feeder system to the high school. And I'm not so sure that it has to be exactly the same offense, defense, special teams, but philosophically, policy-wise, those kind of things have to be important. And I think the game has changed tremendously. And if there is detachment between the youth program and the high school program, you're going to fight a losing battle. And I'll share with you an experience that I had. This is 1981, and I'm actually just 26 years. I was 25, going to turn 26, and I was the head football coach at Stoughton High School my first year. I've been a graduate assistant at Maine for 2 years, and Stoughton was right next to my hometown. It was in the same league I play in. It was the Hockomock League, which is one of the best leagues in Massachusetts. And it's right there by Foxborough Stadium, Mansfield, those in North Attleboro, some great programs. And I was, like I said, my first year in, and early in preseason, I went down to the youth program and to get involved, to recruit, to see, to have their program become part of our program. And after watching 45 minutes of Bull in the Ring, I kind of thought we were going to have some problems because, most of the coaches, unfortunately, a lot of them were Vietnam veterans, and their idea of football was two kids running down the hill, smashing into each other. It really never worked for me there, and I wasn't there very long because of it, simply because of the distance between our youth program and the high school program in terms of philosophy, policies, procedures, and those type of things. I think it's incredibly, incredibly important that there's a same page mentality on that. And it could go to the extent of, hey, you're running our offense, you're running our, that's fine as long as they're in agreement. But I think playing the game, and in this day and age, playing the game is so much more important than it used to be. And so if it's flag football through the 8th grade, which it could be in the state of Massachusetts, I'm hearing, then you've got to figure out how to make that philosophy work, that philosophy and how they go about taking coaching and being a part of the program, and some of those value-driven type of things you want taught, because you're not going to be running the same offense in a flag football game, but you're going to get guys that are playing the game. So I think that's a reality that we have to look at. The strength and conditioning coach, mental and physical preparation of your athletes. I think, if you have one in your community, you're blessed. A lot of times it's associated now with our sport. One of your coaches is that guy that is he's the guy that's in charge of developing the training programs and things like that. And it's, sometimes I'd rather say, and I still say it to this day, but make sure they start in kindergarten in the weight room. Fundamentals, the very, very simple fundamentals. Don't get the things ahead of when they're ready, because the one thing I really feel, and I believe this, is that they're not as tough as they used to make them nowadays. The young kids, they're just not. They a lot of them, they don't get in fights anymore like we did in schools. That just doesn't happen. So I think they'll look for a way out a lot sooner than later. A kid that gets jacked up in a football practice may not come back the next day. A kid who gets buried by the weights in the weight room, he may not come back the next day. It's just one of those things you've got to be aware of. So a lot of this, the mentality that I think I'm promoting here is make sure, you understand that they got to start in kindergarten with a lot of these things and bring them along. Academic counselors, I really think sometimes this isn't emphasized enough, because football can have a huge impact on your education. And I'm one of those guys that's guilty 100%. I grew up in a blue collar home. I'm first generation college student. I did not enter high school in a college prep program. My senior year in high school, I had to take Algebra 1 and biology just to get myself eligible for a lot less strenuous standards back in 1974 than they are now. So, I was fortunate. Football gave me away from a blue-collar life. I might be banging nails now. I might have gone to the Vietnam War. Who knows, But it gave me away, and I think we can get now with education and its prioritizing in our communities. I think there's a way that you need to be able to touch those young men who are more blue collar, perhaps not thinking about a college education, and get them involved in an academic plan that involves achievement. And it would be good if the coaches knew the NCAA recruiting rules. Now, I think that's a developmental thing, for the coaches in your program. It's obviously a real requirement of the head coach of the high school team in the community, but I think it's also something that should be shared with the coaches, simply because it can impact our game, and it can impact the lives of the young men you're coaching. I'm blessed now to work at a school that is, I have to keep Webster on my desk with me, guys, because, sometimes they'll hit me with something and I got to look up a word. It's that scary. But these guys are, they're totally dedicated to their academics excellence, and they love football. They play it for all the right reasons. There's no scholarship involved. It's amazing how impressed I've become with them in that pursuit, because their academic rigors are incredibly challenging. And, I'm talking about guys who are going to become doctors and lawyers and some of those special, unique jobs that are in our world nowadays. The third topic I'm going to move down here, teaching, coaching, practicing, and planning, is really, everybody see that okay? This is really just a fundamental thought process, I believe. It's a simple game. Teach the fundamentals, the fundamentals, the fundamentals. Still a game of blocking, tackling, throwing, catching, and running. It's not that complicated. We've made it sometimes overly complicated. And I think within your communities, you need to know what they can handle, what works and what doesn't. Numbers, volume, those kind of things are important. Individual player development is a comprehensive growth in all aspects of their lives. You promote the academic achievement and advancement. You develop athletic skill and sports performance, and you educate on life skills and your value system. Those are three, I think, topics that make up that comprehensive growth in their lives. And if that's happening, academic achievement and advancement, the athletic skill and sports performance, and you educate the life skills, and they're living your value system. You're developing leaders, you're developing role models, you're developing young men who you can point to as success program. And once that gets established, you have a hierarchy. You have in your community exactly what you need. That young man that you can point out is now playing football at X and X university, or this college, that college. Those are great motivators. Those are, it's just really a special way of indicating, I think, that you're doing your job properly and you're comprehensive. It's about all of those things. And I list academics achievement first and foremost, because it's something that it's just so important in what they play this game for. This game can beat you up. It's not one of those that's one of those lifetime games. It's one that doesn't have a lot of longevity to it. Other than the guy that just left us. I mean, not too many guys play more than 6 to 8 years, I think, is probably a long career in the league. So that's just how it is. It's a tough game. Second part of this, preparation, presentation, and performance education. I call it the 3 Ps. It's been part of me since my time at Maine and now here at Colby. They all know what it is because it's really incredibly important that they do. We talk all the time about making ready in advance, about preparation. And one of the things that's a result of great preparation, if you are over-prepared, you will be underwhelmed. And that's a good thing. You worry about putting a practice together and all those kind of things and how's it going to go. If you are over-prepared at the end of practice, you'll be underwhelmed because things will go well. And you'll say, well, geez, what, but that's a great way to feel it because it points to your preparation in advance. And I think that's really an important part of things in all aspects of working with young people. You've got to get out in front of them. And that might not be, for a practice. It's a meeting, or an individual meeting. And I've been, again, Colby's more challenging than the place I was before with intellects. I can tell you that. So I spent some time getting ready for meetings because, they think with brilliance. And so you have to make yourself ready so that you're prepared to handle the questions and respond to their inquiries. Present, model a prepared state. And this is something I think is so important for coaches. Model a prepared state. If you're prepared, you will feel and you will be confident in your approach. I like to use the word boldness. Developing boldness to be able to say certain things, to work to promote your program. I mean, I know this. It was that perhaps kept us going up at Maine because I never felt there was a ton of institutional support for the program. The boldness part of me at times I think was, borderline nuts, but effective to keep us important enough to keep fielding a team. So I think that's an important part of confidence is to be able to make not only that confident approach, but at times know that boldness is needed and you got to stick your neck out a little bit. And I think that's part of what young people look for. I want to be able to demonstrate to the team I have now at Colby that I'm going to go the extra yard for them. Provided, seeing the great attitude, the effort, the discipline from them, then I'm willing to go as far as possible for them. And that's a great way of developing the leadership that they need to see and the followership that you're going to get from it. And then the third part here is perform, to take action. When you're teaching and coaching this game, do it. Don't talk about it. There's reps is really something I've always, I learned that I go back to Tim Murphy in 1987 when I came to work at Maine. And Tim's still at Harvard and still coaching his butt off. And but I'll always remember one of the things, the great tasks I learned from him. Tim didn't believe in having too many coaches. So, unlike the staffs now where, I had myself and 10 assistants at Maine. Murph only wanted 8 assistants on top of him. And so I actually had to coach quarterbacks and receivers. And that can be difficult. You got 2 different groups. We got 4 or 5 quarterbacks and about, at the time, probably 15 wideouts or 12 to 15 wideouts. And, in double sessions were going on back then. You're trying to manage a group, save their legs, get them better, all those kind of things. And I really learned how at times to manage the volume of reps. And when I say here, do it, don't talk about it. I constantly would have one group working and the other group was doing what we would call leg savers, just because it was the only way I could figure out to have them ready to be able to perform in the team and the skellies and things like that. But it taught me a lot. I learned a lot from doing that. And it really is important, I think, that when you're going to get out there and coach and practice and play, that you got to be prepared You got to present your a model, a prepared state, and then you got to go out and do things the right way. The last thing here in the teaching, coaching, practicing, playing, it's just fundamentals and techniques: blocking, tackling, throwing, catching. Teach the technique. I'm a big believer. Coach, demonstrate, peer models. Get leaders in your group to model the technique and the fundamentals you want shown. Drill the technique. Coach the details of it. If don't leave things out. Be specific, and then critique the technique. Use and watch video regularly or whenever possible. And again, from program to program, that's going to be a little different. I know that it's part of the routine. I think is in our world now. Some programs have the ability to video, some don't. Some video practice, some don't. I know games are videoed for the most part. I know that's something that has to be done. But the more they see themselves on video, I think it's just such an incredibly effective teaching tool. So I'm going to flick to another next page. I hope I get this right now. We got it up there, man?
You got it, Coach. You're good, man.
Guys, I did that by myself.
I know. You graduated.
I'm moving up.
It's going to be hanging around that campus.
You can't teach it. You can't teach an old dog new tricks, right? Football topic to talk about in the process of recruiting and developing and that health and safety. Parental concerns regarding our image. Violence. It is a violent sport. Don't be afraid to say it. Don't be afraid to say it. It is a violent sport. You wear a helmet and shoulder pads for a reason. There will be contact. Let them know that. Okay. Fact. Concussions and CTE topic must be addressed with confidence. Data-driven information out there about other sports. Women's soccer, it's out there, guys. It's out there. And the more you are able to talk about the value of football, and you're honest with them, and you're confident about your presentation about what the topic is, and you have that data-driven information about other sports. I mean, I really think that's imperative, because you just are going to you're going to feel like you're backpedaling defending the sport, as opposed to championing and being on top of what I think it could be a failed opportunity for that parent to embrace the sport and allow their son to be a part of it. There's a lot of multi-sport athletes gone from our world, dying breed. Why? Because of specialization. Where's that coming from? That's parent-driven, not coach. For the most part, not coach-driven. I, in particular, love three-sport athletes, and to this day, I still say my favorite off-season sport is wrestling. I love wrestlers. I recruited so many wrestlers at Maine because of just it's them and another guy on a mat, and just going at it, and it's heart and soul. And a lot of those guys, in particular, I really like the big guys, the heavyweights. I was always getting ticked off at high school coaches who made, 195-pound strong safety wrestle at 172 pounds or something like that, and cut weight. So they weren't my favorite guys. But, if you see football players on the basketball court, the big guys running, the point guards. Point guards are probably guys you can recruit to play a lot of athletic positions on the football team. I remember running in the late 90s, running with a slew of guys who were high school point guards who were quarterbacks, who came to us and ended up at other positions. But I really think, the more I just love it when the season sport changed. You went from football to basketball or ice hockey or wrestling, and you went from that to baseball or lacrosse. I think there's a freshness in the mind and the body of the young person when they're not being pushed and driven and specialized and sports all summer long. This summer AAU and travel team mandates, a lot of that is parent driven too. And the coaches are usually outside of the high school ranks. They're more, maybe one of the parents or one of the kids. So those are things that I think impact our game, the health and safety, because it's really, I think, in one sport, the overuse injuries, there's data that supports that. That athletes that are just in one sport wear down mentally, wear down physically. And I think that's something that needs to be stated. But I really believe, going back up top, that you need to educate the parents, in a data-driven manner about football. And if you're going to get to its values, you got to be frank with them about the game, that it is violent. It does require what I think is more specific emphasis and time spent on fundamentals and techniques and teaching. Teach them how to tackle properly, teaching how to block properly, teaching all of the fundamentals extensively, and selling your confidence in it as a coach and your staff's ability. A startup for youth football, flag and tackle, is another kind of interesting debate. And age progression and requirements for tackle football, they change everywhere. What is flag versus tackle, and when to transition? I have become completely wrapped up in what I think is play the game that's available to be played. And then I think it's up to the leadership, the coaches in the community, and those coaches getting together with other communities through their league office. We have to start making it easier on ourselves by establishing, is it flag through 6th grade and tackle 7th and 8th, or is it flag through 7th and tackle 8th? Whatever it is, but I think there's too many, we're tackling, too many people who are too proud of tackling in the 3rd and 4th grade, as opposed to, and probably losing kids, as opposed to maybe playing flag football and getting the numbers up so that they're having a good experience. They're out running around and enjoying the game. I said this earlier. I just think a punch in the kisser to a 3rd grader, he may not come back the next day. And all that is a little bit of helmet shock, maybe, So it really is important that we get a plan together on that flag to a certain grade level, tackle to follow. And I think it has to happen before high school, even though I would be the first to say that I've seen a lot of guys, and I shared a statistic that a few years back that you guys might have heard, that 4 guys that played at Maine spent a total of 40 years in the NFL, but only a total of 8 years combined playing high school football. Mike Flynn played 3 years of high school football, played 12 years in the league. Mike played soccer his freshman year in Springfield Cathedral. Montel Owens played 9 years in the league, soccer player his freshman year in high school. Went to football, sophomore, junior, senior. It gets better, though. Mike DeVito, 10 years in the league, junior and senior year in high school. He played football. Before that, he hadn't played. And then Matt Mulligan, 9 years in the league, and Mike never played high school football. So it's not. This is a sport where especially for bigger guys, where you don't necessarily have to be playing in the 3rd and 4th grade. But somewhere along the way, guys, we got to get them playing. And if flag is that answer, I am 100% all for it. I know a lot of us here tonight follow that same type of thinking. We've got to establish a kind of a protocol or a pathway that works for this state. It's just really important. And this guys that are saying flag is not real football, that's a weak argument. Football is football when it's being played and the ball's being thrown around. Guys are not. There's no tackling. I get it. You got to learn that later on, but that's why we're having this conversation. But flag is in all essence is football. It's just like the high school 8-man argument that 8-man football is not football. I got 3 guys on our Colby team that played 8-man football out in the Midwest. It's football. It's just 3 guys left. They're still blocking. They're still tackling. They're still running. They're still throwing and catching. Football is football, and we have to use the excitement of being able to play it along with the values it provides to be our biggest recruiter. I look down at next statement, age and size related classification challenge in small communities. It really is important. And I understand it and saw that it looks like there's going to be 26 now 8-man teams in the state of Maine next year. I think that makes sense to do. I just think it makes sense going from doubling from last year or more than doubling. So I think that makes a ton of sense. Perhaps it's a resurrection in those communities of the game. Maybe down the road there, and I hope there is kind of this goal to get back to 11-man. But until that happens, this has got to be the game. This has got to be the show in town, and it's got to be supported. It's got to be, and again, you've got to learn the differences. Not so much again in blocking, tackling, that stuff. It's kind of in the strategies and how you play. Interesting league out in California that I've watched recruiting the last couple of years. The league is of private schools. Some of them only can field 8-man teams. Some field 11. So they just play with what they got. So I watched a team play with 11 one week and 8 the next. Interesting one that the kid we were watching, they were a run football team with 11 men. So, they had a wide out, but they never threw the ball, a couple of wide outs. But so when they played 8-man, they just took the wide outs out. They kept the tackles in there, and they were a better running team in 8-man than they were in 11. So it was interesting to see that, because most people think that 8-man is spread the field and huck it around and score a lot of points. The last thing I put down, I got to believe it's incredibly challenging community to community to find opponents and schedule games at the youth level, simply because of that philosophical difference up top, where some schools or some places have got 3rd and 4th graders tackling and others don't. So I just don't know if we're helping the sport develop if you can't play, if you can't get community matchups. And I think that's needs to be addressed again in that big picture type of thing to be able to help out that way. Proper equipment, sizing, fitting, helmets, shoulder pads, because of the shoulder tackle, which is being taught, shoes, practice surface, quality versus look. I mean, I think, for the most part, that is very, very important. We're not throwing them out of this stuff out of the back of a milk truck anymore. This is really important. The coaches need to know and demonstrate absolute confidence that they know how to fit a helmet, that they know how to fit the shoulder pads, that they know how to go about their business as equipment men. If you're fortunate to have equipment men, God bless you. But most of the time, and I know when I was at Stoughton, I was the trainer, I was the head equipment manager, I was the late night custodial guy. I mean, all of those things. And I don't know that that's all changed that much. But you've got to be great at that. That's where you've got to demonstrate a confidence in terms of that fit of the helmet to the parent, because they're going to, I don't know how you do it in high school, but I know that because of what I think is a liability issue, I know that once we get to Colby, we order helmets for the first year players, and it's their helmet for their career. They're not going to get a secondhand helmet. They're not going to get something that has been used by somebody else. It's their helmet for their career. And fortunately, the 2 years I've been there, we've only had one kid leave, so it's only cost us one helmet. But, that is kind of a risk, I guess. But I look at down the road, the liability issue if somebody were to get hurt wearing a helmet that had been somebody else's the year before. Age-related practice and preparation, nutrition. Again, this is a main issue. I've learned this the last few years. The number of schools that provide meals, lunchtime meals, and how there's the extent of the rural poverty in our state. And I think fueling the engine to practice and play is something that perhaps isn't as well known or recognized, and the importance of hydration, which is so critical to perform. But these are just things that I think are important that the coach knows. And in fact, I wrote it here: active stretch and warm up. A lot of their exercise they get with their thumbs, guys. They play a lot of games behind a TV set. They're really not out there playing wiffle ball games and two-hand touch games in the street or pond hockey anymore. They're not playing 21 on the basketball court. You know, they're really not doing that. So is this their first exercise of the day? You know, so maybe there is a need for some of those active stretching and the warm-ups and those kind of things. And then down at number 5 here, teaching and coaching. You know, this is just something that I think, you know, is really, really important, you know, teaching blocking and tackling. And that's the coaches being educated on it. I think that's the responsibility of the head coach in the community, the head coach of the youth program, and the high school coach getting together, getting on the same page, and being able to speak the same language about those techniques. I think you need to reduce live contact now, blocking and tackling in practice. 45 minutes of ball in the ring is not going to make it in 2020 North America. It's just not. And that's got to be something that is really looked upon the right way. You can practice so many of the techniques and fundamentals without live contact. You know, and I think that's something that will be appreciated by parents, that you're spending the time on fundamentals and techniques and coaching it the right way. You have to practice it live. You do. You designate those times. You designate a couple of reps. If that's something that you could video and share later as a teaching tool, I think that's tremendously important and advantageous. But you do have to reduce it, and I think that's just something that is, you know, part of our world today. That part of things, making sure that you're not overdoing things. And then stand-up scrimmages versus live scrimmages. How often? Stand-up scrimmage is just one of those deals. We call it thud at Colby. We call it the same at Maine. Stand-up scrimmage. Nobody goes to the ground. Very difficult to teach young kids. Naturally, they're not quite as strong in the lower body to be able to understand it as well in the upper body. But I do think if you can get that done, and I was really, one of the most impressive things we've accomplished at Colby is understanding that, because it was really something we did a great job of at Maine and had to teach it the last couple of years, because it wasn't something that they was normal for them. But it became something. I lost my mind a little bit a couple times the first year, and well, now we have nobody on the ground, and that's important, because I think it's something that keeps. And this is not about avoiding concussions. They're going to come. This is about the other injuries where somebody's on the ground and rolls up on a kid's leg or something like that. That's, and there's all sorts of ways in this game to have a setback. And so you've got to coach against it all the time. Well, number 6 down the bottom here, I put the implementation of football standards of operation across all levels. And I know we heard from Coach Burgess about USA football, and you know, if that's something that could be done statewide, and I know a lot of communities in our state have gone in that direction, but probably not enough. I see that kind of being a way of circling wagons to come to that working understanding of startup age. When are we doing flag? When do we go to tackle? Some of the standards, you know, the things that they teach, they spend time on and use videos on tackling, blocking fundamentals, and coaching techniques. I do think that's something that should be really looked at in all ways, shape, or form. And I think and hope that that is something that we could see ourselves getting. Am I over time, Mike? Am I good? Because I could go one more. I got one more up there if you want to have it.
Yeah, go ahead, Coach. Give it to us. That'd be awesome.
All right. All right. Here we go again with that stop and share thing. All right. Got it?
No.
No? Damn. All right. Hold on, guys. Share screen. Bingo.
Nothing.
Don't worry. Don't give up on me yet, guys. There we go.
There we go.
I did it myself, guys.
Got it, Coach.
All right. Just some high school football topics, I think, too, and just some things I truly think are important. Classification-related topics, enrollment figures, and national participation data. It's under 6% now, the high school student body that plays football. So we had to look at that. You know, if those numbers are really alarming. It's going down all the time across the country, even though it's truly a monster at the NCAA and the NFL levels. You know, you wonder if we're ever going to be able to keep up with that monster if we stop producing young people that play the game. But I think that's got to be taken into fact when we look at the communities in the state of Maine that, you know, with 200 boys in a school and you're talking 6% of that crowd, those aren't big numbers, man. My math it can even tell me that. So we really have to be aware of that data right there. I love the fact that we're moving towards the implementation of 8-man football, and it's good to see the clinics coming up. I know we had charted and allowed for that to be something that was part of our main high school football clinic that was canceled. There was a good section on that. It's unfortunate that it didn't take place. But I saw Tom Radulski had a presentation here, and so that's really important. And that's really a popular and flourishing form of football in smaller Midwest communities. There's over 100 schools in states like Iowa, Kansas, Nebraska that have these type of programs. I had a great photo. When I worked for Kirk Ferentz, we went down to the Patriots, and Marv Cook was, I don't know if you guys remember that name, as a tight end out of Iowa when Kirk had recruited and coached. I didn't know he's an 8-man football guy. And I have a picture of him with, what was the heck of the guy's name? Irving Fryer, who was from Nebraska, 8-man football guy. They were on the Patriots. They were both playing together on the Patriots in 1990, I want to say 91. We went down to the Patriots camp when Dick McPherson was there. So just a couple of guys out of, and what is 8-man football and not real football? I don't believe that. We got to educate, promote that game in those communities. And if we get back to 11, that's great. But you know what? If they're playing 8-man for the rest of their time and getting a heck of a product and the results they want to have, that's fine too. I think the big thing about 8-man football, when you go to it, it gives you greater daily practice and game day depth. I think, you know, if you got 24 guys on your team, you got 3 deep and you can practice. I can remember a few years back having a conversation with one coach in the state that he was working with 16 guys day one in preseason trying to play 11-man. How do you do that? How do you do that? I don't know. I just, to me, that's not safe. You're putting guys in harm's way before you even playing on Saturday or Friday night. I think the 8-man is going to promote the health and safety in smaller school programs, and you can practice properly. Like I said, it's 8-man 8 on. So even if you're down to 17 or 18, you can still practice, across the ball from offense, defense, and special teams. There was a time when schools were being, I think, really adamant about sticking with the 11-man. We saw some scores a few years back that were just really shocking, and it really truly indicated that there were a lot of haves in our state and some have-nots that shouldn't be. And it looks like with the direction we're headed now is that right? That is exactly the way we should be going. There's also programs that have terminated mid-season, and which creates a problem for scheduling and playoff issues, because all of a sudden they've got there's buys in teams' schedules or forfeits, whatever you want to call them, but they're not playing, and that slows progress in the development of the program. I can remember, I put this in here simply because I remember a Vermont model years ago where they sent a minimum classification for ABC in Vermont, and then all the other programs had to play 8-man. I don't know if that's something that you thought about in this state. That, if you're under X amount of students in your school, you play 8. That might not be popular, but it might be a way to develop consistency in who's playing 8 and who's not. And I know that my man Skipper is constantly in charge of the clinic routine, and I don't know whether there'll be the possibility of continuing at least the 8-man clinic cycle this year. I know it got started up last year, and I think there's a need not only for the promotion of that game in the state, but also the coaches' growth and development is really important, because it does require some different thought processes and strategies, along with the usual tough requirements of the game in terms of blocking, tackling, and those type of things. So there, I'm exactly 1 hour right now, man. Are there questions? Mike, was that something I should have paused on earlier? I apologize for that.
No, we can take questions now. I'm going to stop the recording, and then if guys want to come on, and you guys can put your cameras on if you want, or put your
sure.